I believe there is a sequence and a code to unlocking anything you want in your life. What's up, everybody, man? Thank you guys tuning in to another episode of the Coach Code podcast. Got my man, Mr. Kevin Schumacher in from, we got snow on the ground up there?
We have snow on the ground. It's white.
Kevin's been on the show a couple of times. I've had him on Expert Mentor Series. And Kev, how long have we been working together?
Well, I believe you've been coaching me since 2012 and met you in 2010 for the first time.
Yeah. And next month will be 11 years that I've been doing this coaching thing, which is kind of crazy to reflect back on and think about. And, we were talking about just the simplicity, the success principles, the things that no matter what's changed over the last 12, 13 years, there's still some things that stay the same. And, just, I think the frustration around really around effort, really around action. And Coach has got me reading a new book called The Confidence Gap, and really understanding where that gap is. And in what he, in the book, and this ties right into the kind of the success principles you were talking about, is he talks about there's two definitions of confidence. One is a feeling, and two is an act. It's an act of trust or an act of reliance. And the confidence gap, the gap is when you feel you have to be confident before you act. And so he quoted, there was a Lance Armstrong quote that he talked about, and he says, you cannot fake confidence. You have to earn it. You have to do the work. And it's kind of what we were talking about before we came on. And it was just about doing the work, about doing the effort and really honing in. And I would love for you to kind of pick that up with what you were talking about with Brunson, talking about, Napoleon Hill's success ladder.
Yeah, absolutely. And our biggest focus, we're in unprecedented times. I think everyone would probably agree. May 9th will be my the start of my 29th year in real estate. I know I just started really young, just really, really young.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. But we always see these cycles, but when we look back, I think the average agent's been in the business like 5 to 7 years. And so when you go back, we haven't had a true downturn in the market for 11 years or something like that, or whatever the number is, but when you go back into 2008. So this is really new territory, uncharted territory for a lot of people. And it's been so easy for a while. And typically every market has had a typical cycle. So for us, for us in Colorado, it would be very typical for things to slow down. In general, it would slow down after the holidays or right into the holidays. So December, but January, February would typically be pretty slow. You see price softening. Well, the last 3 years, we've been just running and gunning all the way through. And we didn't have really any dips. A lot of times, you taught us some of the, the foundational pieces when we're learning data and learning the market and when on a listing appointment is really to understand the influx of inventory and saying, okay, if there's going to be 1,000 or, if there's going to be 1,200 homes that sell in your market, that doesn't mean 100 homes sell every month. It means, right, that can vary based upon supply and demand. So really understanding what that bell curve looks like. Well, anyway, we've been just running and gunning. And so agents are just used to just deals happening. And so we've really just, now that people are just really in scarcity mode and walking around going, what the hell are we going to do? They have to pay the bills. They have overhead, they have debt. So we've really tried to just hone down and going, okay, let's really simplify things. And I listened to Russell Brunson's podcast here a couple of weeks ago, and I just listened to it again this morning. And it talked about the Napoleon Hill. He's a big Napoleon Hill fan. And it talks about the magic ladder to success. And he really went through the 16 different steps. And it was really fascinating because when you look at Napoleon Hill, when you look at Russell Brunson, these guys have had massive success, but it was simple steps. When he talks, like, the first thing was really about having an aim. Like, what are you doing? Like, what's the target? Like, what's the one thing you're trying to accomplish? And then go for it. But we meet with the team, and and Gene and I, when we're as you're helping us coach our team up, we're always providing all kinds of training and just overloading them. And one of our agents here a couple of weeks ago, Brandon's like, man, just like I don't need any more. I don't need any more. I just need to focus on that one thing, right?
Yeah.
And so, and it's really easy to be a student of the game. So that's where our focus has been, is really like, what's that one thing that you need to specialize in? What's that one thing that you need to do that you can take action on?
And does that vary for other people, or is it just pretty much universal across the team?
And no, I'd say in general, it's across the team. It's for everybody. And it's because there's so many moving parts. When you look at all the shiny objects with technology and all the things that technology can do, technology can easily replace people, is what we found, but also technology can easily help enhance their productivity as well. And maybe you have a lesser head count, but of the current head count you have, you're able to pay them more and up your set. So you have the same salary cap, less head count, but people are making more money because you're bringing on higher skilled people as well.
So are you guys coaching them and focused on kind of what that North Star activity is, that one thing? And we know this, that agents, they get fixated on kind of the lagging measure, right? Which is their bank account, instead of really focusing on the things within their control. So like Brandon, for example, he said, I just need to do the one thing. Like, what is that one thing?
Well, when you think about it right now, the number one thing for most is survival. Is how do I survive the first quarter? And sometimes for some people, it's how do I survive this month? And so it becomes so overwhelming that they sit at their desk and they're shuffling papers and they're just scratching their head wondering what to do. And the one thing, we talked about this on our call the other day with some of our newer agents in our Colorado team, is accountability. It's like, just pick up the phone and make the call. Okay. And then each day track, how many calls are you making? Because if you aren't making the calls, you're not going to talk to the people. So it's really starting there. But, they talk about, the second step on the ladder is self-confidence, is being able to have confidence in yourself to be able to do it. And many a times you have to have some victories for that self-confidence to elevate, but sure, it's being able to be be stellar focused on what the goal is. And then having the plan to be able to, and the confidence. So, step 3 is the initiative, being able to take the initiative to move forward. So, okay, I need to make deals. Who's my audience? Who am I calling? Make the calls. What am I saying? But having the discipline to keep making those daily calls.
I love that. And so what, they're talking about in the confidence gap goes to that self-confidence. And what he says, basically, the first rule of confidence is that actions of confidence come first and the feelings of confidence come later. And he said, this takes time and effort to be able to achieve that. And he said, where people lack that self-confidence is that excessive expectations, harsh self-judgment, occupied with fear, lack of experience, or lack of skill. And, we've talked about at KT and talk about the four C's, commitment to confidence. And it's just making that commitment to what that, like you said, that first step, what is that direction? Are you committed to that? And, you guys do a great job, and you've always done a great job at, okay, hey, I want to make $1 million in revenue this year. Okay, well, how many units, what's my average unit? How many units? Is that doable? Is that something that I can commit to? Can I commit to those daily activities, that those monthly, those weekly, those daily activities? Can I commit to that in order to hit that outcome? And then it's the courage is the action, right? Do the work that it takes, like you said, have the conversations, and it's the accountability of it. And I had Kevin Kaufman on Expert Mentors yesterday, and he said, one of the things that accelerated in collapse time in his career was him and Fred they were in the same office, and they just heard each other making calls all the time. So he said, like in his first year, he did, because this is, they were in the short sale days, which you
Right.
remember you went through. And he said that him and Fred sat there and they heard each other and they went through the deals. And he said, I did 30 deals. Fred did 30 deals. However, we did 60 deals because I listened and heard everything that he was doing on his 30 deals, and we collaborated, and then vice versa. And so like, and this is why I always say to new agents, brand new agents, I said, you've got to get on a team. You've got to get on a great team, because it removes a lot of the things that causes the confusion, that doesn't
Right.
allow you to do the one thing. And the courage is the action, and taking action, you're going to develop the skills along the way. Even if it's just listening, if it's role playing, if it's making calls, getting hung up on, assessing, you're going to learn and develop those skills, and you're going to get those daily wins. And it's like you said, you're going to start to create the confidence to be able to have that belief that you can do this.
Well, absolutely. And we all have failures, but I would say, looking back over my career, the failures is probably what led to many of my largest runs of success. Because
Right.
if you don't fail, you can't learn from them. And
Right.
so this is not an easy game. Everyone always sees all of the social media trophies, but they don't realize all of the struggles that it took to get there. So
Right.
it's like, when you have the failures, how do you measure from there? How do you move forward? And that really goes back, that goes down to the commitment. Being committed to the process. And today in again, when everyone could go talk about how many homes they want to sell this year, but I keep going back and going, if you don't make first quarter, there may not be, if they're not, and I'm not a doom gloomer by any means, but all I know is I've been through some tough times. And when it's really rough, you don't look at a year, you look at a quarter.
Right.
If you're still confused, you're looking at a month. If a month's bad, look at a week. If a week's bad, you look at it at the day. You got to
Right.
have some wins. And so that's really just starting to get the victories, building the momentum, and then the momentum can be contagious. But the other thing they talk about is having enthusiasm, because what you say and having the enthusiasm in your voice, it transpires right through the phone, right through the video, right through the conversations. So
Right.
you have to be able to have that enthusiasm, and not be that Debbie Downer. Is like, I think you made reference to, we've all seen Winnie the Pooh. What's the Eeyore?
Uh-huh.
And
Eeyore.
he's like, like, how many people get excited seeing Eeyore come down the street?
Yeah, you run. You run.
Exactly. So, so don't be an Eeyore. Just, if you want it, you got to figure out, okay, who am I trying to attract? What does that
Right.
audience look like?
Yeah, it really is. And I think that even goes into, being who you're around, who you're surrounding yourself with, but it also, the clientele that you're really trying to attract, right? So that's a great point, right? If you're that Debbie Downer on there, people are going to run away from it, and that's not what people want, right? People want enthusiasm. They want a belief that you can help them accomplish, what it is they're trying to accomplish. And so, yeah, the thing that kind of, when it gets like this, that it really hones in, and, thinking about that, right? Like this month, this week, today, it's really starting to prioritize where your closest opportunity to making your cash register ring. Like, where is that? And, one of the helpful things for us, that we would always do is we would, put a dollar amount next to it. And so, like, you look at, hey, if I can call and reposition this home in the market and get it to where I know will attract some offers, that's potentially $10,000. And then you've got some stuff that might be, 6-7 months out. And yet, most agents tend to focus on, those things that are further down the road, instead of doing that one thing that could make an adjustment, even going into the weekend, that could potentially get an offer. And here you go, you've got, you're going to have cash in the bank in, 30 days, versus chasing things that are going to take 6, 7, 9, 10 months. Who knows, right? So like the social media, building your brand, that takes time, right? The YouTube channels take time. I mean, even the gurus on the YouTube channels, they tell you 6 to 12 months before you get any leads. Yet you want to go chase that shiny object. I believe it's I believe it's really powerful and it's going to be really critical. However, do you have the things now that can create opportunities now? And I think that's where a lot of agents miss. And that kind of goes back to Brandon's point, like you were talking about, is that, okay, what is my predictable selling system? Like, what if I do this, it will result in this predictable. And I think I shared with you, I went down to Cindy's office in Tyler on last week to kind of kick off her success center. And she had a panel of rock stars, in the local area. And she was asking them all, kind of going through, talking about their success and their business. And I was really listening in, and everybody talked about relationship driven business. But then Cindy would ask, are you buying leads? And 4 out of the 5 people on the panel said yes. However, it wasn't the thing that they were talking about. And so when we look at that relationship driven business, yes, it is profitable. However, it is unpredictable. And so that's the thing, right?
Well, and I was listening to Glenn Sanford talk the other day, and he was talking about different growth. And it really depends on where you're at and where do you want to go? What is your ultimate goal? Do you want to be a single agent? We all know a lot of single agents that have been very successful
Sure.
as a single agent, and many of them, they don't aspire to sell 500 homes. They aspire to have a great life, great lifestyle. They like the one-on-one interaction, and that's great. And they can do the relationship piece. But what Glenn was talking about and breaking down was when you look at all of the large teams and the teams that really scale, they're buying leads. I mean, it's a huge pillar, but you have to be able to. But it also, you can go start buying leads, but it takes a while to build that pipeline up. So that's really about, for those agents looking at trying to grow their team or grow their business is, the focus is, what are your primary pillars? And so like right now, obviously buyers can go ring the cash register quick, but you got to be able to go find those buyers. So don't think you can just go try to buy leads quickly, because you got to build the pipeline. So for many, it is going right into their database, making calls in all of the relationship, because those people already know, love, and trust you. You don't have to go build rapport. The rapport is there. You're just trying to find the deal versus, going through your dashboard of new leads. You got to first build rapport and then find what their motivation is, their timing, and so forth. So, right now, if you look at the market and just look at the news, look at distressed sales, those are one of the things that we've been working, really tapping into is going, okay, there's a lot of people out there that are in trouble.
Yeah.
How do we help them? But I can't just say, hey, do you want to sell your house? You're dealing with a lot of pride. So then it goes into messaging. Okay. The book, I always say, the book, Tell to Win, tell a story they can relate to with an outcome they desire. So what's your messaging look like, and how can you help those people? And so that's the big focus that we have, is really looking at our agents and saying, where are you at? What are your opportunities? One of our new agents, she's brand new to Colorado. So, I think she knows 5 people.
Sure.
Okay. So her approach is going to be much different than somebody like Brandon, who's been in the area for a really long time. So really just being intentional on the actions and the plan.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And, you're talking about specific niches. We were joking about short sales a little earlier, but that was the niche opportunity in the market at the time. And so that's the direction you had to go, or you were not going to be able to survive. And I think there were just during that time frame, there were really just a couple pockets of opportunity, and, they're there. They're always there. It's just, you got to find where is the opportunity, who has the biggest problem that I can help solve. And that's just kind of what we're constantly looking for. And you're spot on with, the distressed pre-foreclosure. I mean, and there's a lot. I mean, it's getting back to the normal of where they have been, historically throughout, right? There is always a set amount in every market. And you just kind of got to look at what's been happening over, since March of 20. And all of that is now coming due. And so those people have been in that situation, or even kind of displaced, or they haven't been making payment. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of mess, but it's the same mess that was prior to 20. And we're just getting back into those same numbers. So there is a niche there. There is an opportunity. And you're right. How do you message? How do you connect with those people?
Well, and I think it's for every person, whether you're circle prospecting and just making general calls or you're calling your database, you have to know, you have to be able to relate to them. You have to be able to understand and ask the right questions in the right order to really understand timing. You know, I think, most agents that have been in the business a long time can really do a good job of articulating that. One of the things that we've really focused on in our messaging is when we're talking to the consumer is really just letting them know that we're a consultant. We're taking more of a consultant role. And Mr. Seller, what we've identified is ultimately there's really two different buyers in the marketplace. There's one that's the consumer that's going to own or occupy your property, and they're going to give you no doubt the most amount of money because they're emotionally attached to living in the home. But the terms may not necessarily be the best, i.e. they may have a home to sell and they're not going to be able to move as quickly as you, or you're going to have to work around their schedule. Or there's the other buyer, which is going to be the non-owner occupied buyer. That's the investor. We work with a lot of different investors that are trying to expand their investment portfolio. And so, they're willing to, many of them pay cash for your property and close quickly. But again, their offer is going to be tied to what they can rent your home for and what their rate of return is. So you may not net the most amount of money, but they're going to accommodate your timing if that's most important. So, if you have a few minutes, I'd love to sit down and talk about the different, about the two different buyers, talk about the marketplace and see which one would be the right fit. And if this would even make sense to you to do something at this point in the market.
Boom.
So that's the dialogue that we've been having with them.
Yeah. I think, and it's very conversational, and it's conversational. I mean, you're educating them, hey, can we get together and go a little bit deeper and have a better understanding of what you're trying to achieve? So then we can apply the best scenario for you. And it goes back to, being that true expert advisor, right? Not an order taker, but being the true authority and the true advisor, and asking questions and then providing solutions to help them achieve that. And it goes just like you were talking about, telling the story. I was laughing when you said, there's a lot of, internet trophies, and we all know there's a lot of internet trophies, and yet there's no money in the bank. And Kevin Kaufman yesterday said something along those lines. And so it made me kind of chuckle, kind of thinking through there. But as team leaders, I mean, you've done it all, right? I mean, the solo agent, big team, back down, just expand, contract. But looking at kind of even like what Gene in Birmingham and with a really big team, like what are you seeing with the teams and the team leaders that they've got to make sure that they're doing a really good job of right now?
It's accountability. It's really accountability. There's a lot of agents out there, and you don't know what you don't know. So when I say this, that's not that these agents are bad. They just don't know. So we got to lead them, because they can get excited about I ran into a past client, or I ran into a friend at the store, and they may do something this summer. Okay. But that's not going to ring the register now. Right. And so it's what are the daily activities they need to make, we put back in place. We used to do it a long time ago. And, on our call with Wayne the other day, is the daily accountability of each day, the agents filling out, okay, how many calls did you make? How many, what you spoke to? How many people did you speak to? How many appointments did you set? How many appointments were met? And how many contracts did you write? Right. And that's, so it's really looking at those numbers and holding them accountable. And that's what our team leaders have to be doing. And the other thing is holding them accountable in the daily activities goes to focusing on what is your pillar of lead generation? Because I always got, we've always done a lot of pay-per-click internet ads through the years. And we were really successful at it. So I thought, well, you bring a new agent on, just, hey, this is what you should do. That was just my expectation. I was just thinking wrong, because it worked for me doesn't mean it works for them. So now we look at, the 5 or 6 primary lead pillars of lead generation. And we're like, okay, what resonates with you the most? And what are you going to commit to? Okay. And then once we get them to commit, then what daily actions do you need to take to be successful? And then we're holding them accountable. Like we always talk about managing the agreement. So we lay out the agreement, and then permission based, like you mentioned the other day, get permission to say, do I have permission to hold you accountable to these daily actions? Yes. Now I don't have to let them go. I don't have to fire them. I'm just holding them accountable to their daily actions for what the agreement of what they've agreed to.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things, got James Adams in Florida. He adopted kind of a point system. And, as new agents come in and, a couple different tiers, and, you need X number of points to be able to tier up, right? You're at level 0, you're coming in, and it goes back to what you said, right? The calls are a certain point, right? Conversations are a certain amount of points. Appointments set are a certain amount of points. Appointments kept are a certain amount of points. The face-to-face, showing properties and executing contracts, right? Everything has a point system to it, and you got to have X number of points and tier up, and it unlocks opportunities. And so I think where a lot of the team leaders that we've seen over the years, and this, get in trouble, is if they just immediately start allowing the agents to become entitled because, hey, I'm going to give you leads. And that's all the agent hears. Oh, so I'm going to get leads. And then you're talking to them about, okay, well, these leads might convert in 3 to 13 months. Well, what are you doing? What are you doing now? And then they're like, well, you're giving me leads. That's what I'm doing now. It's like, well, yeah. They get in trouble that way.
I've been down that road, and it was interesting. It was back in 2016. I was at our Christmas party, and I happened to hear a conversation behind me, and it was one of my agents. It was Ben, great guy, and Ben was talking to another agent. And he's like, oh man, our team is amazing. Like, it is so cool. Like, man, Kevin just piles on the leads, and then we just like pick them up and like, hello, this doesn't work. You go to the next one. And he was just sort of joking around a little bit, but there was still a lot of truth to it. And I'm going, holy shit, is that what I did? Like, my relationship to Ben is elastic to my lead flow. Like, right. So all of a sudden, if I don't give him any leads, he's not going to be happy with me. Right. All of a sudden, I'm giving him a lot of leads. He's my best friend. Right.
Right.
So it really opened my eyes to stepping back from that. And obviously we made a lot of changes gradually. Because there was at times where they would have hundreds of leads in their dashboard, and then they're just cherry picking. And so, and then we were like, oh, buy more leads. Well, no, it's like, it's focusing and making sure that we're getting everything out of every lead. And also making sure that people realize it's not just a lead, it is really a person. And so just getting very much more intentional on that.
Yeah, I think so. It's, it's funny thinking through that, right? Where they see the value, and then you've got, on the opposite end of the spectrum, like with Gene, doesn't give any leads. And so, how do you, where do they see the value in that relationship?
Well, I remember, 2 years ago, year and a half ago, when I met Gene for the first time at the kitchen table, and we were in, I can't remember first time I met Gene, I don't know if it's Oklahoma or Texas, but in Dallas, but it was, anyway, I remember him talking about the model and talking about the splits. And then he says, he builds it off of culture, and he builds it off of training and giving them skills, which is, I absolutely love that, but, those are, thin margins. And you have to have such commitment from your people, which he obviously did an amazing job and pulled off, but not many people can scale that. And so, what we found as we partnered and we continue to grow is there's a happy medium. And so we've really focused on how do we implement strategies that are in our proven, because you always talk about, is it fact or is it fiction? You talk about, are you coming from a place of that you've done it, or is this just a theory? Okay. Right. So we go out and we test things, like we talk about working with the defaults and stuff. We're testing all of these strategies. We have proof of concept. Then we layer it and we push it out to our teams and to our team members. And so they can continue to grow and use those, because this market is too volatile to send people on wild goose chases. And there's always people out there, and you see it all the time, whether it's coaches or agents trying to sell and for agent attraction, and, oh, use this, try this, try this. And people are writing checks and the shit doesn't work.
Right.
And many people are really, really relying on you. What you say, they're believing it. And we take that to heart. So we're not gonna send somebody down a rabbit hole.
No, I love that. And I'm glad you brought that up, right? There's just kind of the ways we even talk about this at kitchen table, right? If you're sharing something, you always want to kind of declare, or, how the information that you're about to share, is it from my experience? Is it from somebody else's experience that I was able to witness kind of firsthand? Or is this just an idea? And so I think too many times, where I see it, where it comes from, is that usually when we're small, 3, 4, 5 of us just trying to figure it out, we know we can just speak freely. And we're just maybe throwing things against the wall, but we don't have to kind of declare that conversation. We can just talk. Well, when we get past that 4 or 5 threshold, then, it changes. People then, you say something, you might just be thinking out loud. They don't know you're thinking out loud, and they take it to heart. And I think, where I've gotten better at that is questioning it all. Right. And so, when you're around people, but I think it's just because you condition yourself, because you used to be able to speak freely like that, and you don't think
Right.
about it. And then, so I think from a better conversation is then just always being curious. Hey, did you do that? What were your results? And then you can just kind of dive a little bit deeper and like, oh, no, sorry, this is just an idea. I was watching this training, right? And they were just kind of talking through it. And so then they can unpack it. Sometimes they don't realize, how they're delivering the message. But I think for us, receiving that message, it's so important to kind of question, hey, is this your experience? Is this somebody else's experience? Or is this an idea that you picked up? Maybe you thought of this, or it was sparked from a training, or, another conversation you had. And I think that will help too, because I think that helps with the shiny object syndrome. And
Absolutely.
And being able to talk to somebody that has had actual experience. Does it work? And how long does it take to work? And that's what we were kind of talking about. What's that cash conversion cycle?
Right. And being able to truly measure and be able to measure. And you guys have always talked about it, but it's knowing your numbers, because when somebody says, oh, try this, then ask them their numbers.
Yeah.
So really, oh, amazing. So how many postcards did you send out? Or, based on how many postcards, how many calls, how many responses did you get? Of the responses, how many did you convert, if you don't mind me asking? Or, whatever it is, but always follow up with a couple more questions. So that way, if the bullshit radar is going to go off or not.
Yeah. And it's and one way to tell, right? It's precise. It's not, oh yeah, I got 40 leads. No, you didn't. Like, it's probably, 32, 33, 41, right? There's a precise number. When you know the numbers, it. And it's, it really is so important to be able to, to dive deep and look at that with, for you guys right now, and, helping agents, look at the month, look at the week, look at the day. One, and this goes back to knowing those numbers and reporting it. How are you guys, tracking the numbers and reporting the numbers and looking at the numbers?
Well, it's, you mean as far as the productivity, or?
Yeah, productivity. Like how is that being, tracked and then measured and looking at it and understanding what it means?
Well, an example is, so we have a Google form each day that goes out to our agents. And on that Google form are those 5 metrics that we talked about, as far as how many dials, how many spoke tos. That then goes on a Google Doc. And so we track those numbers. So an example is if one person's making 100 calls a day and they're speaking to 20 people, and they're not getting any appointments, then there's a problem with their scripts. They're it's the conversation. They're not having the right conversations, or they're talking to 20 people and they're setting 3 appointments, but they're not getting a home under contract. They're not getting a listing. Then it's the face-to-face. Like, what are you saying when you're on the couch? So those are areas where we're diving in deeper and saying, okay, because when you have the numbers, you have visibility to where there's always you're going to see the bottleneck. And obviously, the contracts is the magic number. So when that number's high, then things are good. And if that number's high, then what I'm going to ask them is, obviously you're doing something right. Let's share, let's collaborate what's working, and let's share. And that's really about, then that brings up the other thought, the other thing that we're pushing and that's over deliver. And that's our theme right now is over deliver to the consumer, over deliver in every conversation, and if you're known to be the person that's going to over deliver and always go that extra mile, that extra step, if you're having a conversation, volunteering your expertise, whether they may not be buying now, but, hey, by the way, I just recently, and that's where the affiliate relationships come in. Hey, John, by the way, I just want to let you know, we're sending out I'm just going to send you a discount on a carpet company we've been using, and they're offering 20% off to all of our clients. I just wanted to send it over to you, law of reciprocity. I just want to send it over to you and just tell you thanks. Just what are the little things you can do, and always giving, and that will come back and help you.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things, right? When you focus on the lifetime value, and it's as you were saying that, it was just that, under promise and over deliver. And even take it a step further, right? Over promise and over deliver. And so that's the magic, right? Where, what can we do to really, deliver an experience that they'll never forget? Because that's where the word of mouth, that's where the referrals, that's where, those other things start to work well for you in your business. And if you're doing the things on the front end and going through the process, but you're delivering an exceptional experience along the way, that's where that stacks up. And then, that's where, a lot of the word of mouth, the referral business, and, comes in, which is just bonus, but you still have to do the things within your control to keep creating those opportunities.
Well, and it also goes to those that are wanting to grow their team, or those that are, one of our focuses has been in the last 6 months has been the ascension ladder. It's like, how do we continue to, keep the lid off the opportunity jar? How do we continue to allow agents to ascend and grow as an agent? If somebody decides to go off of our team, but there's still alignment, they can still be a partner in our organization. That's the victory. You always talk about, have a graduation versus a divorce. And so I encourage, whether you're a team leader or you're a single agent wanting to grow, is how do you think bigger? How do you over deliver on all your conversations and all of your relationships? There's many of us that have been doing this a long time, and we take certain things for granted, but there are certain nuggets that you can share, even if they're not on your team and they're just in your office, that you can just help lift somebody up and over deliver. That will become contagious, and other people will do it, but also people are going to let other people know what an amazing person you are. And that's karma. Karma will come back, and it'll, and so good things will happen. And so that's another one of our focuses is really, we call it, sort of a team within a team, but how do we create that ascension ladder where people can continue to grow with us, and how we can share essentially our blueprint of how we've grown from an agent, be able to take certain things off of their plate and allow them to grow in certain areas, so it's not so overwhelming, and they'll still be able to succeed and get some traction and momentum.
You nailed it. And that's been the fundamental flaw, the biggest constraint in the mega team, traditional team model, is that the agents had this perceived lid of opportunity on their career by being on a team. And I think that when you take that off and you provide a clear ascension path, if they choose to,
sure,
that the opportunity is endless for them, right? They don't have that perceived, ceiling or lid. And now that allows them to be more creative and think bigger, instead of, because the original traditional thought was, okay, I got to get to a point and then I'm going to be sneaky about it and I'm going to leave and I'm going to go build my own team, instead of being collaborative and working together, and how you can continue to ascend And instead of you leaving, that, you ascend and we're still aligned, but I'm helping you achieve and build what you want to. And so that all comes down to the model, but I think it comes down to the understanding of the leaders that it is a graduation. How can I help my people graduate instead of this is just going to be a messy divorce? One thing, Kev, I want to kind of circle back real quick because this is super important. And it's the struggle. You see it with agents. I see it every day. It's the buying in to track the numbers and understanding all we're trying to do. And you said it, we're just what we reveal, we can heal. Where is the constraint? It's just like you said, if we're not getting contracts, then what the heck are you saying on the couch? That's a constraint. And then now we know where we can improve. And when you look at the theory of constraints, there's always a constraint somewhere, but you can't find it if you can't see it. And that's where the measurement has to be. And what I would argue is that if you're not tracking, you're embarrassed to track, you're not getting the contracts, to me, you're not putting in the effort, right? You're not showing up, you're not putting in the time, you're not making the calls, you're not doing the engagement. And I promise you, if you don't have any other business to do, you show up, you spend 30, 35 hours a week just engaging, calling, circle process, doing whatever, you're going to have conversations.
Well, you have to have the belief. You have to be able to believe in that, and that's what Russell talked about. One of the steps was imagination. You got to be able to imagine, and you have to be able to like believe in yourself that this is possible. This can come true. But what happens is, and this is just an industry flaw and a problem in our industry is that so many people get in the business and they go sell one home, maybe because they don't have to necessarily sell because they have a significant other that's doing well, whatever their scenario is, and they do these onesies and twosies. And so they just show up and they have an overpaid job versus actually looking at it as a business. And I really believe that's the first step is going, okay, why are you in this? Are you have a career or are you going to onesie twosie it? So it's really getting the buy-in of, are you going to run a business? Because if you're running a business, you're going to have a P&L. You're going to have accountability. You're going to have to be able to have structure. And so you have to be able to believe in that. And once you believe
100%.
in that and have the confidence, then how do you run a business? How do you, what's your filter for making decisions? It's like if you're not going to, it's like the you do those trackers where you write down each on the hour, what you accomplished or what you did each hour. You do that for 2 or 3 days. Reality hits pretty quick if you are true to yourself and what you look at, what your daily activity is. Look at through the lens of an employer. If your daily activity, if you're the employer and you look at that daily activity for 2 or 3 days, would you give that person a raise or would you fire them? Right.
Right.
So
most agents would be fired.
Absolutely. And I get it. There's days you don't want to do things, but
those are the days you do it.
Absolutely. Because you have to have a profitable business. Your business will fail. And I think that's the number one thing is, what do you, it's being, as leaders and is having the tough conversations of why are you doing this? And I want to have, I just need buy-in because we're not going to keep pouring in like, hey, I'll be friends. We can go have a beer. But when it comes to business, I'll help you grow your business, but I can't pour into somebody that's not, that's just going to take.
You've said that you said imagination and it made me think of a conversation with Ed Milet and Alan Stein Jr. on Ed's podcast. I think I've mentioned that podcast to you. It was mid last year and talked about the power of visualization and talked about even, as Alan was walking into Ed's studio, like he was visualizing everything, right? It's coming in. He visualized how the conversation was going to go. He just visualized the whole thing. And Ed was like, I do the same thing, right? I visualize, I visualize just everything that he talks about. But Alan shared a pretty cool study that they took, they took a group of people that on day one, they shot, free throws and they counted up how many free throws they made. And then that group practiced every day. And then like 21 days later, or whatever it was, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, whatever, they come back and then they shoot free throws again. And then they measure what they did on day one and then what they did on the last day. And that group practiced the whole time. The second group came in, they shot free throws, and then they didn't shoot free throws again until the last day. However, the time, their practice time was just visualizing the free throws, just visualizing it. And then the third group came in, shot free throws, then did not practice, did not just have a set down focused visualization. And then they came back and shot free throws on the last day. So obviously that group did not improve. They were horrible.
Right.
They were terrible. He said within almost a couple of points, how they were measuring it, the group that practiced every day versus the group that visualized every day was almost the same. And he goes back into, I remember hearing some stories, coming up, playing golf. Ben Hogan used to tell some stories about it, just when he had the devastating car accident, but he would, laying there, he can still visualize his swing. He can visualize, everything that he did to be great. There was another story where guy was a POW. And while he was a POW, he would visualize his golf swing. He would visualize playing golf courses. He would visualize the shots. And when he was released, he was able to get back on a golf course. He almost picked up exactly where it was. And I just remember, playing competitive, that was such an important thing, right? Like we would drive the golf course and we would just visualize, okay, this is where this shot's going to go. This is going to go. And I remember laying on tournaments, laying in bed at night, just over in my head, my swing, where it would go here, just visualizing the whole golf course and every shot all the way around. And it's just amazing, because then it just allows you to be in the moment. And I think that's kind of important with their imagination with agents, is like, just visualize getting into that work environment, just visualize how you're going to take action. Right. And then you can start to, go through that process.
Absolutely. And it also is thinking forward of again, why are you doing what you're doing? And right. I know a lot of people say, what's your why? And that can get a little diluted, but it's like, but what, why are you doing what you're doing? Like, I remember actually it was yesterday morning. I went for a run. I remember I walked in a room. I have this shelf and I was by a hat for sort of to remember the experience,
Mm-hmm.
And so I look along this shelf of all these hats, just because I got to protect my bald head. And I see my hat from Talladega. I see some from some of the golf trips. I see from the beach trips, and I look at all of these experiences, and I'm like going, damn, like that's what it's about. I just love experiences. Yeah. And I went up to my office and I dialed like a crazy man. Like I was so motivated because it was clear of why I'm doing what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. It's just simple things. I go back to, I remember when I very first started with Kinder Reese coaching, and the very first event was when Blake won the what was the big old statue of whatever, the big old the King
I don't know. I think
King Kong Award.
King Kong. Yeah, it's King Kong.
Yeah. And he was so fine dressed in his 5-piece suit and all that. And I'm like, and I remember I asked Wally, I'm like, who is that? And he's like, oh, that's Blake Sloan. Like, Blake Sloan. And so, but Wally was saying about, if I think it was either an Maserati or an Aston Martin. I can't remember what it was, what the car, Maserati. Yeah. And he always wanted a black Maserati, if I remember right. Uh-huh. But and so he had a screensaver on his computer, and so he ended up buying, he found a Maserati. Anyway, the story ended up being, it was a white Maserati, and he called, he's talking to Wally, and he said, Wally, he goes, man, he's like, it's something about buying the white Maserati because I always wanted black. He goes, what color's the Maserati on your screensaver? He goes, white. Uh-huh. And he visualization. He just saw the white Maserati every day on his screen, and he bought it. So I just remember from a long time ago, visualization works. So
it does work. It's so powerful, and it can be used, either like that, right? Just where it's something you're looking at every day, or it can be in the process of you going through that, like even visualizing going through the listing presentation. I know that was one of the things, even visualizing the conversation that I'm going to have with this particular client, right? Just visualizing how it's going to go. Sometimes it doesn't go that way. However, I think you remove that fear of having that conversation when you're able to kind of visualize and walk through it. And, I think that's kind of what we're talking about with the confidence gap, is that, there's that fear that they put on themselves. Yet that fear, if you're just visualizing, going through, visualizing the conversation, visualizing getting hung up on, just continuing to just kind of work through that, to me, helps remove some of the doubt or that fear that really doesn't exist.
Yeah, absolutely. And with visualization also is then once you visualize, then it's rehearsing and being able to, whether it's role playing, whatever it is. But again, at the end of the day, you got to just focus on what outcome do you want?
Right.
And the outcome that the person on the person that answered the phone that wants to talk to you, they want what you're trying to sell them. You're trying to fulfill a need. Just go fulfill that promise. You had a conversation, just go deliver. What's your value proposition? What do they need? Solve the problem. If you identify the problem, and then you have a solution for it, you won't have any problems.
Won't have any problems. Be cashing checks. Kev, man, I appreciate you jumping in. Always great conversation. Ton of knowledge. I usually these calls, I have no idea what direction we're going to go sometimes, and we went right at them on the real estate side of things. It was good. Little rapid fire session for everybody. Cool, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you guys tuning in. Kev, what's the best way for people they want to get hooked up and get connected with you?
Yeah, absolutely. They can always send me an email at Kevin@KevinSellsCO for Colorado, Kevin@KevinSellsCO.com. And yeah, I'm always here to help anybody help them grow.
Definitely a tremendous resource, wealth of knowledge, and definitely love to help and give back. So you guys make sure connect with Kevin, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thank you, brother.
Sounds great. Thanks, John.
See you.